pretty good childhood. My siblings and I had all the freedom we could have ever asked for. We would run through the yard, yelling and playing mindless games. And at one point in our young lives, I'm pretty sure we convinced ourselves we could take over the world. We were invincible to anything and everything, or so we thought. That all changed when we started to grow up. My sister got a job, my time was filled up with homework, and my brother has his Xbox to tend to. We all drifted away from each other with the priorities that seemed to matter. We went our separate ways. We still talk and we have our sibling adventures, but that's only when we need to refresh our connection. As I've grown up and my relationship with God has grown, I've come to realize that we do the same thing with Christ. We get so close and so committed and so absorbed into the plans that God has for our lives. But when our friends are going to the party, or our friends are smoking, or we're home alone and the computer's unlocked, we seem to take off our God mask and put it in the closet. Then we go to the party and we get trashed, or we take the drugs that our friends give us, or we look at the pornography website. You get sidetracked from God and you say, it'll be fine, God will forgive me, or I have time to make my life better. You see, in Matthew 14, it states, immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he dismissed them, he went up to the mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because of the wind against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. And the disciples saw him walking on the lake, and they were terrified. It's a ghost, they screamed, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid. If it is you, Lord, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. Come, he said. Immediately, Peter got down out of the boat, walked down on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink and cried out for God. Immediately, Jesus reached his hand out and caught him. You of little faith, he said, why did you doubt? And then he climbed back into the boat, and the wind died down, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. See, Peter did the same thing that a lot of us do. We believed in God, and he saw what God was real, but he lost track of what he was searching for. He got sidetracked and started to sink, and when he started to sink, he cried out for God because he actually acknowledged the fact that he needed help. We as people find ourselves in these predicaments that we can't get ourselves out of, and we don't cry out to God. We say we can handle it, or we turn to drugs, or we turn to alcohol, or we say that a friend can fix our problem, but the fact of the matter is that we're all broken, and broken people can't fix broken people. I love this story because so many Christians can name a time they could relate to Peter. It's like going to church camp every summer. We load up on God for 5 days, and we get to see old friends and play games and go to services that are sworn to be life-changing. You feel like you can finally get your life back on track when you go home. You're going to start a Bible club. You're going to get your family to go to church. And you're going to be the light that leads your friends to God. And you will be phenomenal. At the end of those 5 days, you get in your van, and you turn right down the driveway, but everything seems different. You get home and your parents are still fighting, and your friends are still doing the drugs, and your Bible gets tucked back under your bed until youth convention. And suddenly everything you planned on bringing home with you from camp was left under your bed as well. We get so focused on God, and then we get a new job, or a new boyfriend, or a new, you fill in the blank. What is your job? What is your homework? What is your Xbox? What is distancing you from your relationship with Christ? We need to learn what it's like to be committed because our youth has no idea what commitment means. We need to learn what it's like to love Jesus with everything, with no shame of praying for our friend when they're sick, with no fear and no turning back.